I'm Tara Joseph, taking a look at the week ahead in Asia with Peter Larson, editor of Breaking Views for Asia. And Peter, finally a switch away from China to focus on Myanmar, where Obama will be early on the week. Is this about diplomacy or U.S. business interests there?
Well, I think the answer is it's both. We're actually calling it Obamacare, if you'll forgive the pun, because it's basically his first foreign trip since re-election. And he's going to Southeast Asia, and he's going to be the first sitting president to visit Myanmar, which is a big issue for a country when you think that only 6 months ago they were still officially under sanctions from the U.S.
Should we be reading a lot into that choice, that he's chosen to go there? Is this the Asia pivot, or is it just really a photo op with Aung San Suu Kyi?
No, I think it's very much part of the Asia pivot, and it's also very much about Myanmar, which has obviously done a huge amount to open itself up, to embrace democracy, to get rid of censorship, and therefore this is really the U.S. rewarding Myanmar for kind of what the reforms that it's made. And it's also a very strong signal towards China that the U.S. intends to try and have some influence over this country, which was potentially falling under China's grip. The question, though, is there's still huge problems in Myanmar. I mean, for example, the economic reforms have only just started. They just passed an investment law, and there's a sense, to a certain extent, that the economic enthusiasm is getting ahead of itself. The other day, a company launched an index, a sort of trading index for Myanmar. This is a country that doesn't actually have a stock exchange yet. So that's getting ahead of itself, and also it's got huge problems. It's got ethnic violence happening on the borders. So the danger is that Obama has he's now delivered his carrot, which is I'll come and visit and I'll come and endorse what you've done so far. That might make it harder for the U.S. to make sure that the leadership stick the course.
Still, is this an example, especially now we've got President Obama, the new China leadership, that the U.S. is really going to put its stamp on this region, and we're going to see a lot of this going forward?
We are, and the interesting thing, of course, will be how China's new leadership responds to this, because the expectation is that we might get a slightly more nationalistic China, one that is a bit more outwardly aggressive, partly as a way to distract from the sort of slowing growth at home. And that could set up some interesting clashes, not just in Myanmar, but in the South China Sea as well.
A quick one on Japan. We have Japan Trade coming out, a rates decision by the Bank of Japan, as politics is also heating up there. What's the key thing to watch in the coming week in Japan?
Well, I think the Bank of Japan will be very interesting because they're coming under a lot of pressure. I mean, they were already under pressure to do more. The Bank of Japan essentially has a problem, which is that it's the least irresponsible of the central banks in the developed world. The Fed and the ECB and the Bank of England, to a certain extent, are all ahead of the Bank of Japan when it comes to basically printing money. And that's becoming a political issue in Japan. We had terrible GDP figures this week. And obviously we have an election next month. And Mr. Abe, who's the leader of the LDP and is probably going to be the next prime minister, is making explicit statements saying the Bank of Japan must do more. So the question is really whether the Bank of Japan feels that it can respond to that without compromising its independence, or whether it will actually dig its heels in and potentially set up a clash after the election.
We'll keep tuned for that. Peter Larson, Breaking Views, great to see you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.